What is oil paint? What is acrylic paint? What is watercolor paint? What is a canvas? These are just some of the basic questions we are going to be discussing here in this video. Stick around to watch more. Here's an introduction. Thank you guys for being here. Love ya. Peace. Enjoy the video. Many people begin to make art without having that much technical information about the things they're using. And in my opinion, this is a good thing because diving directly into something, avoiding paralysis by analysis, this is largely good, and it's honestly very helpful to the creative process, at least for someone like me. I learn by doing things. I learn visually, I learn with my hands. But what do you do when you're deep into your creative process? Perhaps you are in front of a seller, perhaps you are in the gallery standing in front of your painting and somebody, a patron, a potential buyer, they start to ask you technical questions about your process, about your medium, about what it is you do. What then? I like, instead of just being dumbfounded or not knowing the answer to something, I prefer to know in advance, if somebody asks me a question, or at least have the capacity to give them an educated guess. So with that, I thought it would be helpful for you, and for this overall project of educating people through art, visual, video content to make a very generic, basic primer to some of the most simple art medium and technical art questions. So I say we just get directly into it, What is the difference between acrylic and oil paint? Guys, acrylic paint is water-based paint that dries in mere minutes to hours and usually has a gloss or semi-gloss finish. It is essentially pigment suspended inside of polymer emulsion, which is a mix of water and acrylic resin. It is highly versatile, accessible, and easy to use. Everybody and their mother has used acrylic paint. If you buy a paint by numbers kit online, you're gonna get acrylic paint with it. It's sold at department stores, it's sold at Home Depot, it's sold at craft stores. It's the easiest paint to use, the cheapest to buy probably, and the most accessible for the beginner. Oil paint, on the other hand, is oil-based, hence the name, usually made with linseed oil, and it takes days or even weeks, sometimes months to dry. It is known for its rich, glossy, and luminous finish. It is difficult to use and usually requires the use of a medium or solvent, though it is not mandatory, but it is well known for maintaining its vibrancy for literal centuries. There's a reason that some of the oldest, most famous and beautiful paintings in this world are made with oil paint, and it's because it's basically ancient. Before that, they were doing like egg tempera or frescoes on plaster walls or something like that. But since the Renaissance, probably a little bit before, and all the way up until now, we have been using oil paint to get our beautiful, powerful, vibrant, luminescent, iridescent, amazing, light-bringing, excellent compositions. Can I acrylic paint over an oil painting? Short answer, no. That's pretty much the only answer. You really cannot do this because the acrylic paint is water-based. Not only that, but it also requires a porous, kind of dry support in order for it to stay and bind to the canvas, wood, whatever it is. While oil paint and its finish is slick, it is literal oil, and it will not allow any water-based materials to bind to it, especially in the long term. So if you acrylic paint, spray paint, or whatever on top of an oil painting, that paint will not be permanent and it will eventually flake off, peel off, or fall off. And this is quite simply because water and oil. Can you finish the sentence for me? Next question, can I oil paint on top of an acrylic painting? Absolutely, everybody does this. This is essentially an industry standard for acrylic and oil painters everywhere. Many people will take, whatever it is, whether it's like Liquitex or Craftsmart, whether it's incredibly cheap or incredibly nice or whatever it is, just a generic acrylic paint, block in their composition, get their shapes, get their basic figures or whatever it is they're drawing with acrylic paint, finish that up, whatever, and then let it dry thoroughly, and then finish the composition with oil colors. I mean, you don't have to do this. It's It can be a good way to save time, you know, because a lot of the parts of the painting you will block in with acrylic paint will never be seen by the viewer anyway. And if you use oil, especially this, so it's kind of, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but this is a very good technique to do if you are painting really large scale. Like if you're doing huge canvases, blocking the painting in with acrylic and then letting it dry, then finishing in oil can be clutch. But if you're doing smaller scale paintings, you're painting in a particularly dry and temperature controlled setting, you'll be fine just doing the oils and no bother with acrylic at all. But if you feel compelled to oil paint over your acrylic painting, do it. It's totally chill and a good idea. With all this talk of painting oil, acrylic on top of canvases, on wood, whatever it is, it makes you think, gesso. What is gesso? Every time someone says, oh, I want to paint this piece of wood, I better gesso it first. You're probably wondering, what the hell is gesso? Why is everybody gessoing? Gesso is a usually white paint made up of chalk, pigment, and a binder, and it is used to prepare the surface of a painting. It creates an even, textured, and porous surface that allows oil, acrylic, watercolor, whatever paint to bind to it. The reason, so basically when people are saying, I gessoed the canvas, I gessoed the wood, I gessoed over this whatever, they're just saying prime. They're saying primer. You know, if you're painting the walls of your house, you would put up a primer on the walls, you would sand it, then you put a base coat, whatever coat, finish coat, etc. The gesso is the primer in this equation, where you may take a canvas, raw, you stretch it onto some bars, you gesso it, sand it, gesso it, sand it, gesso it, to your heart's content until it is either, you know, very smooth or whatever surface you like. Me personally, I don't mind a textured surface, so if I'm gessoing something, if it's not 2 coats, it's just 1. I'll just slather on some onto whatever it is and then get to painting, obviously after it's dried. But if you're wondering, what is gesso? Traditionally, it is chalk mixed with binder, made into a paint that people put on their canvases to prepare it for oil and acrylic painting. Another not so obvious question that a lot of people might ask is, what is canvas? What is it? We know it's a fabric that's back stapled onto a set of stretcher bars, but in reality, canvas is a heavy duty weave. It is a specific type of composition of fibers that is made out of cotton, or in the more expensive range, it is made out of linen. After that, it is stretched onto bars and it is stapled on the sides or the back. That is a canvas. It is literally a composition of cotton and linen that is specifically made to be durable under stress, over time, etc. Now to put 2 and 2 together, do you need to gesso your canvas? The simple answer is, actually there is no simple answer. The main answer that I would give is generally yes. If you are acrylic painting or you are using latex, house paint, spray paint, you may, or ink or something like that, you may not need to gesso the canvas. You could paint on the raw canvas and be fine, but it will not apply evenly. It will be difficult to use. It will be more akin to staining fabric than it will be to painting. If you want it to go on normally and allow you an easy and streamlined way of creating your composition, that you're going to want to gesso it. And if you're an oil painter, think twice about painting on raw canvas or raw fabrics, because the oil will bleed through the paint. So there's the layer of paint, right, on your canvas. In between the paint and the canvas, the oil will seep into the fibers and rot it and eventually destroy it over the course of years. And it will, yeah, it's essentially, oil painting on an ungessoed surface is essentially anti-permanence. You're pretty much guaranteeing that your painting will not last the test of time. So short answer, yeah, you should gesso your canvas, but if you feel particularly compelled to paint on a raw canvas, just don't use oils. And if you are just the type of person that really just wants to paint on that beautiful, raw, unbleached kind of canvas look, you can just actually get a clear gesso. You could literally just clear coat it, an acrylic clear coat. It's essentially just the binder without the pigment, and and then just paint on top of that. Problem solved. Moving on to a completely different topic. What the hell is India ink? What is that? Is it pronounced Indian ink or is it India ink? The correct word is India ink. And what it is it is a carbon black pigment mixed with either a gelatin or a shellac binder, sometimes gum arabic. And it is a super fast drying, hyper pigmented, super dark black that people use for anything from calligraphy to drawing, and it is even the very ink that you will find in Micron pens, Faber-Castell, etc. And it is all around a very fun and exciting medium, especially if you're doing like super expressive, fun, or abstract stuff. One thing that I would like to note here is that despite popular belief, India ink is actually not a good idea to tattoo with. This might be blowing your mind if you've never heard that before, but in punk and teenage and kind of crazy people world, let me preface this by saying that I personally have an India ink tattoo on my wrist. Here's a picture of it right there on the screen if I remember to edit that in. And it was cool to get, whatever. We tried to be as sanitary as possible, but it still got infected and it turned my arm into a baseball. And that may not have been the India ink's fault, but it still is worth mentioning that India ink is not made to be sanitary. It is made in a crude factory. It could be prone to impurities in the ink. It might have something in it that is not on the label. There could be cross-contamination with other products that are made in the same factory the India ink is made in. Not to mention, the India ink tattoo will not stay black. It will fade into a kind of navy Prussian blue, faded out, blown out tattoo. And if that's just your style, you like that India ink stick and poke, ignorant sleeve, patchwork, I support that. I like that shit. All my homies got patchwork stick and poke tattoos and it's sick. But be warned, if this is you, you do not want to lose a limb to gangrene or get some horrible blood infection because you didn't want to just buy tattoo ink on Amazon. What is watercolor paint? Watercolor paint is famous. It is used by everybody. Similar to India ink, it is a pigment suspended in a binder. With watercolor paint, it is common to use gum arabic, which is a natural gum harvested from acacia trees, or perhaps they are pronounced acacia trees. I am not sure. Watercolor is fast drying, versatile, and widely loved by artists throughout history. Honestly, that's all I gotta say about that. Watercolor is one of the easiest paints to use. There's basically no cleanup. There's basically no maintenance. It is, I would argue, potentially one of the most difficult types of art to master. A professional, highly skilled watercolor painter is highly patient, has unbelievable amounts of finesse and precision and understanding of color. It is no laughing matter. It is not for babies. In my opinion, I have unbelievable amounts of respect for highly skilled watercolor artists, because us acrylic painters, us oil painters, we can just scrape it off, we can paint over it, we can just, there is unlimited amounts of editing that comes along with the acrylic and the oil paint. But with a watercolor artist, those people are just like finesse, just single stroke, just like beautiful. I love if you're a watercolor painter and you take that seriously and that's your singular only medium, you have absolutely nothing but respect for me as an oil and acrylic painter. Next up, what are paint markers? Paint markers, Posca, Decocolor, etc., Molotow. Paint markers are essentially felt tip pens that do not have ink in them, they have paint in them. Sometimes they are water-based, sometimes they are oil-based, sometimes they are composed of some other type of solvent. I would double check the paint marker you are using before you use it on your masterpiece canvas that you've been working so hard on, simply because not all paint markers are made for art. Some of them are just made for, marking a piece of metal on a job site, or marking a wood for cuts, or some of them are just general utility paint markers versus a Molotow, a Deco Color, a Posca marker. Those are made for fine art, so the standards for the pigments are much higher. They have much more brilliance to the color, much more permanence, much more light fastness. I may be using words that you don't know, but essentially, for example, Sharpie paint markers, Sharpie oil-based paint markers, these have virtually no light fastness, and if you draw a picture with these and then put it in the sun for a few weeks or a month, all of the paint will turn white. So all of the pigment will drain out of it, and it will just disappear because of UV rays, and then all that will be left will be a white imprint of the thing that you drew. This is referring to a quality that I mentioned just a second ago called light fastness. This is how much your pigment is affected by sunlight or UV lights in general. So if you are looking for a product and you're looking at a new kind of paint marker, one you've never heard of, if it is marketed and meant for art, it's probably fine. But if it is a utility or an industrial type marker, you might want to double check if this is, not meant for permanence or not meant for art, or it's, you just want to do some technical reading on the mediums you are using if they are not meant for fine art. Next is a million-dollar question that people just don't know the answer to. What are these things? Here is a picture. Oh yeah, this is a mystery. What do you use these things for? These are called drawing stumps, shading stumps, tortillas, drawing tortilla. I don't know the exact name for these things, but they are essentially just a tightly rolled, spindle of paper that is used for blending. If you're a digital artist, this is just an analog blending tool. You would not use this for a wet medium, like paint or whatever. You would use this for graphite or charcoal, and if you want to make the lightest, most subtle marks on your paper, instead of just going in with the blunt force of your charcoal, you could take the stump and just get a little bit of charcoal or graphite on it, and then make extremely delicate, subtle marks like that with the drawing tortilla stump thing. It's really simple, but most people who end up with these just throw them away. They're like, I don't know what that is or why I would have that. It's just a stupid piece of paper that makes my ears and nerves and gives me goosebumps every time it's dragged across a piece of paper. Just thinking about it makes me want to just tear my own eyes out. Another massive, insane mystery of the art world is these things. What on earth are these things, and why are they in a little baggie stapled to the back of my canvas that I just bought? These are called canvas keys, and they are used to tighten the fabric stapled to the wood stretchers. If you look into the corners, the inside corners on the back of your canvas, you will see that there are little slits in where the wood is conjoined together. And what you would do with these canvas keys is take a rubber mallet or another soft tool and essentially hammer them in very lightly, making sure that you don't break the canvas keys or the canvas bars itself, and doing so will tighten the canvas. It's a very good tool to use when we are dealing with an extremely old canvas, or you have spent a lot of time really beating and destroying, and maybe you put your painting through absolute hell during the creative process, and now it is loose on the bars. These canvas keys will tighten it up. Going on to a different topic, what on earth are pastels? Pastels are a dry stick of pigment that are held together with a binder. The common binder is something called, that I've never heard of until writing the script, is gum tragacanth or gum tragacanth. They typically, these pieces typically come as dry pastels, hard pastels, or chalk pastels, and these are a beautiful medium. I have met countless, absolutely unbelievably talented pastel artists painting things from portraits to landscapes to just unbelievable. The absolute, there are no limits to this medium, essentially. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that as a dry medium that is highly pigmented, these are super hyper prone to smudging, to destruction from being brushed up against something. So when you use these, you want to use a professional fixative. This here, what you are seeing on the screen, is a workable fixative. This is used to secure a layer of dry medium when you want to continue working on it. What you are seeing on the screen here is a finishing fixative. This is what you want to put on your paper once your drawing is complete. It will apply a slick, non-porous finish that will preserve its colors. It will protect it from damage. But you want to make sure that you don't put on this finishing fixative until you are sure that you are done working on this piece. If you want to continue working on it, stick with the workable fixative because it seals it and protects it, but it also allows you to continue working on it should you so choose. Moving on from dry pastels, let's ask the same question about another neighboring medium. What are oil pastels? Are they the same as dry pastels? No, they are not. While they may seem similar and contain similar pigments, the oil pastels are made with oil and wax. While regular pastels are dry and powdery, the oil pastels are creamy, slick, and smudgy. They also never, ever dry. These things stay tacky and sticky for life. In comparison to our next medium that we are going to talk about, what are oil sticks, otherwise known as oil bars? Are they the same as oil pastels? Why are they different? Oil sticks or oil bars are made with a drying oil, such as linseed oil, compared to the oil pastels that never dry, are made with a non-drying oil called, usually referred to as mineral oil. This means the oil sticks will eventually dry. The linseed oil in them will evaporate or disappear in some way. I'm not exactly sure how scientifically that happens at the present moment. Like they will just turn into an oil painting, while the oil pastels will remain tacky and waxy forever. I, in the past, have just used a varnish or fixative on top of my oil pastel drawings just to make them safe to handle and not smudgy anymore. That may not be a good idea in some instances, especially if you spray an acrylic varnish onto your oil pastel drawing. You may refer back to one of our previous questions about how you should not be putting anything acrylic and water-based on top of an oil-based medium. But they do make fixatives, varnishes, sealants, things like that that are specifically meant for oil pieces. So if you find yourself in need of an oil fixative, look no further than like Amazon or whatever craft store. Just look it up and buy it. Just like we buy everything in the world. Last but not least is our final question. Can we buy your artwork, Brian? The answer is yes. You can visit my website, brianhuntress.com, find things like stickers, zines, and other good, cool, sick things. Or you can just click the link down in the description. Guys, like I said before, I'm trying to make more legit, serious, more well thought out content about art, fine art, art making, being a career artist, whatever it is. I'm trying to talk about that ish and connect with you guys. So if you like this or you want to see more stuff like this, all you got to do is interact. You know, like the post, watch it, comment, and then I'll know that you guys want to see more of this stuff. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. This has been a basic primer to some introductory, rudimentary questions about art mediums and fine art. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Sorry, that was so cringe. All right, bye. Thanks for watching. See ya.